What we're doing here is looking for some nice alder willow type pieces that we can get that are going to be about 6 to 7 feet long. Oh, there's a pretty good trail through there. Well, there's lots of coyotes around here, so no doubt they're part of it. Boy, that trail that comes through here, the coyote, oh, look at that. Holy, we got a coyote highway here. Plenty of them around. Okay, that's all right. These are an old pair of garden shears from my father's. So you know how old they are because I'm getting to be kind of an old fart myself. These are Wilkinson sword. You don't hear that certainly not for garden shears anymore. I don't think. I don't know. Right now we have to do, well, it'd be best to do it right now while the bark is loose around the stem, because if I wait for a few days and it starts to dry, it's going to be pretty tough, or a lot tougher anyways, to get it off. You can always get it off, but more work than it needs to be. A couple of months ago, I made a video on making a canvas backpack. It was a pretty long video, so I'm pretty sure not many people actually watched it, but I thought I was going to use it without a frame, and for the most part I probably will. But I thought maybe it'd be nice to have a frame for it, for those times when, you know, I've got a bigger load or something that needs to be supported more or whatever. So to string it all together, I'll get some spruce roots. Kind of like making a birch bark canoe, only like in theory, the technique at least. And that'll be the way I attach that. I'll just get the birch bark or the spruce roots hot and split them down, get them into the nice bits of cordage that we need. And when they're hot like that, they'll turn real nice and tight. I'll get them really wrapped up on here. And then as they dry, they don't really shrink like rawhide in the same sense, but they harden up. So they're not going to come undone. And we'll have a nice tight wrap to tie these pieces into a pack. And everything made just from whatever's available. And it's, you know, nature's been here for millions of years, and it's still here. It's a little strained because of us, but it's still here. Nature's never going to let you down. I think that we spend far too much of our time completely dependent on technology. You know, that technology, computers tell us what to do and when to do it, timers go off and tell us when to be somewhere and when not to be, and we spend all of our time going back and forth from offices, rushing and racing around all day long to get to work, to earn enough money to pay for that really big house and 2 cars and a swimming pool that we're never home to enjoy because we're spending all our time working to try and pay for it all. In the meantime, somebody else is raising the kids, because again, both of you have to work nowadays in order to be able to afford that type of stuff. And I just don't see that being a kind of a healthy situation, personally. And you know, a bit of self-sufficiency out here, there's nothing wrong with having those other things available to you, as long as you don't depend on them 100%. If you've not got some self-sufficiency techniques and skills, even if you don't live out here as I do, if you had to go out there, even if it was only for short term, you're not completely at a loss. I think the majority of the people that live in cities, my gosh, you know, if there was a flood or a fire or anything whatsoever that caused them to have to leave their homes even for a matter of days, if they couldn't find some place where a government shelter was available, they'd be in dire straits. You know, and these things never happen at good times. There's no good time for something like that. But if it's you know, if it's in the winter time and you just lose your power, we lose power here sometimes for a couple weeks at a time. You lose your power for that kind of time frame, you know, your house is going to freeze. It's going to cause all kinds of damage to the pipes and everything else. Not to mention, you know, it's going to be impossible for you to stay there if it's 20 or 30 below. Here it's 40 and 50 below at times. So with the wood stove, we can heat the house, boil water, have a bath, and cook our meals, and you know, okay, it's minorly inconvenient, but you know, we can carry on sort of indefinitely in a situation like that. And don't think it doesn't happen, because I think it was about 14 years ago in Quebec, they had an ice storm that shut the place down for weeks and weeks, and you know, people died, and stock in the farms died, and everything froze, and they couldn't even get the army in to help them because you know, they couldn't get there, and my golly, you know. So these things happen, and it's just a smart thing to do, to be sort of prepared for that sort of thing. This is alder, and the longer it stays out in the open air like this, the more reddish orange it's going to get. And a lot of times when you're out moose hunting, moose like to rub their antlers on this stuff because it you know, it helps them rub the velvet off and strengthen their neck and so on. And you can often tell how long ago a moose was through that area just by watching where he's got these rubs, because you know, if it's really a little bit of orange like this, then you know, it might have been, well, could have been even a couple of hours ago or whatever. But when these things start to get completely orange, where there's no spots like this at all, then you know it's been a while. You know, maybe the day or two before, so you know, he may not necessarily be right in front of you. But it's just one more of the many little millions of things when you live out in the bush that you know, you learn, and it's things that you see subconsciously. You don't really even think to look at it, but you know, when you're looking for your winter's meat, some little clue like that, something subtle like this, might just be the ticket to get you that moose that you might have walked right by because he was, I mean, look at how dense this stuff is. He could be 10, 20 feet in there, and if he stood still, we'd never know that. And you know, moose are a big animal, but they move silently, and you gotta trust me, they move silently through this stuff. Well, we'll just mosey in here a ways. See if we can find a spot where we can get some of those spruce roots near the surface. The problem we're having here today, well, not just today, but the whole time, is, oh, there's wolf poop. There's a bit of a bone that somebody's been munching on. It's been such a dry summer that even though that it's, oh, there's a moose scapulo right over there. You see it there? Where is it? Yep, there it is right in front of us. Scapula, that's the shoulder blade. Yeah. Even though most of what's underneath all these trees is basically peat, it was dried like a brick. So there was no easy way to get to the roots. A lot of times they're not that far from the surface. Half the time you can kind of just kick around and sort of dig around with your toe or your hands or whatever, and it's not that tough to get some of them out of there, but wasn't that easy this time. Cut that off pretty flat, and we're gonna split it very carefully so that it doesn't split my finger, and then we're gonna very carefully, and if you need to go, if you see it going too far one side than the other, like if it's going over this way too much, you pull on this side, and if it's going the other way, you pull on the other side, and you keep it going down the center. So you know, we're starting to get off a little bit, so we're going to pull over that way just a little. We'll get her going here. You can't see what I'm doing here. Probably get this up closer. Right, we're in the camera there. Okay, we're working at one side or the other side to try to keep it down the middle, and we're just splitting this root from one end. You know, we're wandering off, so we're going to pull more on this side, and we're going to split this root down. We're going to do that to probably at least one more. Coming off again. This side seems to be drier or whatever, and it's definitely trying to wander that way fairly regularly, but we're pretty close to the end now, so we'll be all right. hunting season is on now, and so there's obviously some extra people out in the bush that normally wouldn't be out there, and that's stirring up the animals and making them move around more just because they're getting pushed out of their bed areas and so on. So with all the bears and such around, it's probably worth just keeping an eye open from time to time, just situational awareness as they call it. Oh, didn't know you were there. Just hard at work here, getting these spruce roots softened up. I'll show you how we're doing. Get that outer crust of bark off there. It just doesn't do anything for strength and just makes it stiffer to work with. So, okay. Tied up. Back over here. Get it nice and snug. And then we're going to start to think about just tying it off. So we'll come up over the top, just feed it down. Like I was saying before, this is it doesn't shrink like rawhide does, but it does. This is quite flexible now because of the heat from the water. So once I get this now, one of those ought to do it, but there we go. Just because we can, we'll put another one in there. Just a little bit different. And this is how basically put that up as tight as we can get it. A little notch in here just to help sort of settle these guys into place. So let's take that and just put it around, and we'll go around him, overlap, over top more, just bind it like you would if you were using whatever kind of cordage. That's all this stuff is. It's just nature's cordage, and we're going to go over top, and we're going to go under and around, and put some stress on it here. We want it snug. Like I said, it doesn't shrink, so it's not going to get tighter for us that way. But what it will do is, as I said, it's gonna dry, and that's going to cause it to harden up. Okay, let's just, we got that pretty good. We'll tuck that through there, and we'll feed that down. There's somebody shooting. One of the reasons I'm doing this right here is because hunting season has started, and so I decided to do this here just for the courtesy of, and safety, of not being in somebody's way. Okay, if you remember back, I'm going to try and get this in the light here. Is it? There we go. This is the alder that I cut 3 or 4 days ago on the first part of this video when I started. And this Cambrium layer here, you can see I was telling you at that time how red it would get. This is about as red as it'll ever get, and the lighter marks are where I've cut through the Cambrium layer when I was skinning the bark off of it, because I wasn't particularly trying to make it any particular way like that. But I like this alder because, you know, it's kind of decorative. It looks pretty cool, and very sort of old-fashioned-ish, which I've loved old school type things. So I just wanted to point that out now that we have a clearer look at it, that that's kind of cool the way it turns out like this. So just a better view of the finished. You could actually, I don't know if I'll bother, but you could put up a clear coat of varnish or something over this just to keep it from fading in the sun and so on. Would also probably help once these are super dry to waterproof them a little bit so that they don't soften up if they got super wet in the rain. Or you could go old school and use resin or something. Okay, well, here we are. We wrapped it up, put a little loop in the center just for no real good reason at all. I'm not quite finished with it because what I want to do, these longer ends are so it can sit on the ground and stay a little bit above the wet surface if it is wet. What I want to do is put a little shelf out here so that when the bag's on it, it'll have just a little bit of a shelf out. But I'm not going to do that right now because this is still all quite damp. All these tag ends have to be trimmed off here, especially these great big ones. So what I want to do is just let this dry now, because the more I work with it, the more I'm going to tend to work these loose. So that'll be that. That pretty much concludes what I'm going to do with that for today. There'll probably be a real short update video, or I'll just incorporate it into one of the next videos to show you how it finished. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Some of these things I haven't done for quite a while, so it's a good thing for me also to get back and do them again, because you know your motor skills, they tend to get weak after a while if you don't do something for a long time. But before I go, I want to do something a little bit new. I think from now on I'm going to do sort of a tip of the week or a hint or whatever. These aren't things that I've invented or dreamed up or whatever, things that I've used for years. Probably some of them I haven't even remembered. Most of them I probably don't remember where I saw them. But things that I do that I don't see everybody else doing the same way on some of the other YouTube channels. So this will be the first one. And this is what I tend to use mostly for cordage. A lot of people like bank line, a lot of people like all kinds of different things, especially the paracord. That seems to be popular. But they're heavier and they're bulkier, and this stuff is very strong. And what it is, I can get it in the camera there for you, is decoy line for duck hunters and goose hunters. Now this stuff is very thin. So you see where I got it cut off here somewhere. I'll show you, well, somewhere in here I've got it. There it goes. You can see how small that is. You see it there? Yeah. There's not much to it. But that stuff is really, really strong. You know, it has to be tied to an anchor and then tied to a decoy. And then through waves and bad weather and cold and ice and everything else, this stuff has to do the job. Obviously it's weatherproof because it spends about half of its life in the water, and so then it gets chucked in a bag and tossed into a garage somewhere until the next time they go out hunting, and then maybe another year, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years before they even need to replace this stuff. So it's super strong. I don't see actually an actual pounds per usable weight on here, but this little roll, and you can see that there's a huge hole in the end of it there, so you could take this off here and wind it around a dowel and reduce this to a fraction. There's 200 feet on this thing. Well, there was when it was new. I've cut some off, but it's about $10 a roll like this, $10 or $11 here in Canada, probably a whole lot less than that down in the States. I don't know about other countries, but it works really good. It's very, very portable. You could actually use it for fishing line. If you had a bunch of this stuff and maybe a leader or something, that would make a dandy trot line or whatever you needed to do. You could actually, if you bought a couple of rolls of this stuff, you could weave yourself a net with it. But anyways, this is what I use. It's very light, it's very fine and portable, it's extremely strong, and it's very, very weather resistant. Even if you use this to lace together the lashings on a shelter or something like that, you know, it's not going to rot through before the next season's over or anything. This stuff's going to last you for quite a while. So that's my tip for this week, and I want to thank you for watching. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you do. And we'll see you on the next one. Have a good day.